Hello, Internet. Happy Friday, TGIF. This is going to be the last stream of this week, actually. So I've said before that I was going to take the weekends off. So if you wanted to get a little tea social time in, today will be the day. So yeah, we should have a lot of fun together. Um, Today I'm going to be talking about roasts and tea. So I'm sure we've all heard of different types of roasts, and a lot of us first associate roasting with like roasted oolongs that we've seen. And I recently got a question from a client of ours that wants to better explain to their customers about roasting and degree of roasting, and when a tea has roast in the title, what does that mean, and is it always like a post-process type of a roast? So today I will be drinking a type of roasted tea. I have two roasted teas here. So this is a roasted oolong, the Forever Spring Medium Roast. And then here, this is a roasted tea that maybe we don't think of being roasted all the time. This is the sticky rice shangpu, and this is the type of roast that people don't often think of, because it's the roasting is actually part of the process. It's part of the drying process, and I'll speak more of that, and I'll even show some videos to give an explanation, visualization of what I'm talking about here. So, first I'll talk a little bit about the typical roasts that we usually think of with oolong tea, and this is something like kind of cool that has become something of interest for tea hobbyists that are trying their hand at roasting themselves. They'll roast in the oven, they'll roast on the stove top, and if they're lucky, they'll actually acquire an actual roaster, like a bamboo roaster, a bamboo electric roaster, like what's used in Taiwan. So Taiwan is, when I think of roasted oolongs, a place that always comes to mind, because they like roasted oolongs.
Place
there.
That always me comes to mind.
Yeah, and roasting and Taiwanese oolongs a lot of time is not done by the farmer. It's done by the merchant, or the person that's storing the tea, the person that is selling the tea. Roasting is actually a way of rejuvenating the tea and bringing out some fresh aromas, some fresh flavors. It's also a way to change the character of the tea. And it can be done electrically. So the bamboo electric roaster that I was just speaking on is one way that roasting is done. But additionally, and more traditionally, it's done with charcoal roast. And that's pretty advanced. I'm not seeing any hobbyists that are taking on charcoal roasting in their own spare time. But the electric roasting is something that's exciting. If you guys have ever done any roasting on your teas, just for the fun of it, or for experimentation, go ahead and leave a comment, or later on when I do open up the social room, I'd love to have you come in and talk to us about your experience about roasting tea. Let me just put a photo up real quick of what the charcoal roast process looks like. They will also use bamboo as well. But underneath the big bamboo baskets where the tea is put, and the tea will be roasting sometimes for months. So this is not a fast process, and this is another reason why it's kind of a more advanced technique, and of course costlier. So that's another way to think about the difference, in your choice of getting a roasted tea. If you want the deeper roast flavor, you'll want to go for the charcoal roast, but there is a higher cost because of the extra level of skill and our craftsmanship and time that goes into roasting teas. It was always interesting how when I really should have all these media things lined up before I even start, so that way there's no delay in getting these up. But I always get inspired whenever I get online and get an idea about sharing with you about these things. Another example of a tea that is roasted after processing is hojicha, which is a roasted green tea. So it's not only oolongs that are roasted, and even black teas will be roasted. Most of the roasted black teas that I've come across, though, are typically roasted as part of the processing, not a post-process. But of course, you can roast a black tea. I don't know why this is not giving me a result. I always collect a bunch of videos of charcoal roast when I go to Taiwan and visit with Alfredo, because his business partner is a very famous charcoal roaster in Mingjin. He's got a nice facility where he roasts tea. And they do the charcoal roast as well as the electric roast. So, tea roasting, or people that do tea roasting, are, not exclusively doing one or the other. They will swap between doing both. Alright, maybe I'll have a better look if I just go on Vimeo and search there. I'll start prepping my tea in the meantime. So I don't have any industry updates today. I haven't really seen too much. I have been seeing a bunch of updates from our network of, hi Gabby, good to see you, of tea being produced. So, it is a happy Friday. I'm doing really well, enjoying this wonderful weather. Just as a point of reference, here in Vegas, my coconut oil has gone complete liquid. So if that means anything to anybody, that's unbelievable. I can't find these photos. I can find a bunch of photos from other people, but I don't want to exploit their content. I have plenty of our own. Yeah, a sign that things are getting warmer is when your coconut oil liquefies. My friend Nick Cantu, the gentleman that makes all the art here, he was the one that introduced that joke to me. That's the way to tell the seasons are changing is the state of your coconut oil. Oh man, this is just really getting on my nerves that I'm not finding it. So I'm gonna drink tea. I'm gonna chill out and relax. Hi Shiloh, good to see you. In my search for this video that I'm looking for, I found one of your videos, Shiloh. I don't know if it's exactly what I'm wanting to show here, but. Alright, so I have a video of roasting Dragon Well here, and actually it's in slow-mo, so it'll be a good one. I'll go ahead and show it with you. So this is an example of not like the charcoal roasting or not the electric roasting that I was like the post-processing roasting I was talking about. This is an example of the term roasting that's applied to roasting that's applied during processing the tea. So this is Dragon Well processing.
然后这边的话就是随着滚动，就不断的那个把它那个茶叶越压越扁。然后这个是调那个这个是调档位的，它到一定的那个压到一定的干度，然后就调下去一档，它就这样调下去。然后这个茶叶随着它的那个就是湿润度，然后就会一档一档往下压，一档一档往下压。
I'm gonna start this video all over again. Here we go. So this is roasting. Okay, this is the actual roasting when it's done by hand. This is the last stage of processing, and it's actually where they're drying the tea. So this is the shaping of the leaf, shaping of Dragon Well leaf, how it kind of flattens. In the old days, it used to be like exclusively done by hand. But of course, with modern technology and necessity for scale, a lot of these processes have been mechanized like this that you see here. So there is some drying happening of the leaf at this step, but the purpose of this step is for shaping the leaf. And then the last process of like small batch roasting by hand in the wok, that is
压下去的力道越来越足，压下去的力道越来越足，然后就会把那个茶叶越压越扁，越压越扁。
And that's roasting by drying. And a lot of green teas are actually dried this way. It's very common to see this across. So you see he's got the leaf there, that's after it's been shaped, and you can see it's like kind of in that traditional Dragon Well shape. And then it goes on to a second machine where it further gets shaped. So it's a very long process, and just think back in the day, they used to do that exclusively by hand. So,
然后杀到
a
第
lot
三
of
档
work,
第
a lot
三
of
档的
effort.
时候，那个湿度达到一定的那个就是那个茶青不是有一个那个干燥度啊，达到一定的那个湿度之后，换到这个的话控制在190度的温度啊，然后就开始第二
This is
道
all
的
done
茶
at
青过
night.
程，
So
然后
yeah,
就
this roasting process is typically done at night because it's kind of like the after the tea's been harvested and withered and gone through all those initial
经过
steps,
刚
it's
才
ready.
那
So
个
here's
杀
the
青
final
的
roasting
过程之
process.
后，
This is what's actually
等
called
那个茶叶
roasting.
冷却之后，就需要就是那
And
个叫手工
the
回锅。
traditional Dragon
手工
Well
回锅的话是那个
is done.
那个机
this
器
last
要
step
达
is
到那个
always
将
done
近
by
2000度
hand.
的那个温度，然
Of
后
course,
然后
you
就
know,
这
more
样不停的这样，
commercial
不停的
grade
就是这个
leaf
手势
is
就是
more likely going to be completely machine
压制
processed, but
这个叫不停的压制这个过程，然后把它那个茶叶那个干燥度更加的好，然后那个还有茶叶的平整度，就是靠这个回锅，还有手工回锅最好的最重要的好处就是香气会非常的好，而且那个茶叶的那个口感的那种柔润度啊什么的，就是全靠这个手工回
see
锅
how TD says, and
出
that's
来
a
的。
very hot pan.
然后
That's why you have to move your
像
hands very
达到
fast.
一
This
定
is
的温度
not
之后，就需要用力，然后
a
不停
slow
的那个
process
在
that you
那
can
个
take your
压
time with. You
压
really do
那个
have
压的那个茶
to
叶，
move very
然后
fast.
就是
And
达到一种那个让它那个香气啊更加的出来， 就 OK 了。然后后期就 OK 了。这个温度不是达到那个，就是需要按照那个就是陶瓷师傅的，就是不停的在调控的这个温度，因为太冷了就马上就开一个。
And there's the final product. So you see, in that processing, there was never a drying machine like what you typically see with tea processing. There's not, like either like the oven drying or here's another. They're just doing the grading. So that's like when they separate different shapes and sizes of the leaf. I will try to find the video of the sticky rice roasting. So sticky rice pu'er. So this is sheng pu'er, raw pu'er. It is. I guess I didn't post it. Very similarly, it's not done by hand, it's done by a machine, and there's several different grooves that the tea fits within, and those there's a fire heating underneath it, and as this whole table kind of shakes, I really thought I had the photo of that there, but the video that I just showed you was definitely what I wanted to share with you, which is the hand roasting of the green tea. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this today was because when you see the name roasted on a tea, on the title of a tea, there could be different meanings to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's roasted post-processing after it's dried and ready to drink, although that is a very common way that that tea is roasted. It can also be roasted as part of the processing. And there's been times when I've seen, in a very rudimentary process facility, i.e. someone's kitchen, that if they don't have a dryer or an oven to properly dry their tea, that they will use a wok, and they will just keep it in that heated wok long enough and keep moving the tea so that it doesn't burn, because of course you want it to evenly heat in order to dry the tea. You got to keep it moving, just like that video I just shared of Dragon Well. And that is called roasting. So like other examples of teas that we have on our catalog that are like that are like the sticky rice pu'er. Oh, and something important that I didn't mention when I was talking about that is that in the sheng pu'er processing, this style of roasting, they also add in the herb that gives the sticky rice aroma, and that's why it smells like sticky rice. It has such a unique aroma, like very noticeable, unique aroma. That aroma it's not integrated into the tea similarly to how like jasmine flower aroma is added into jasmine green tea. The aroma is roasted in during that roasting process, and that machine I was talking about that shakes the leaf on that heated plate. They'll put the tea leaf with the herb together, and that really helps kind of integrate the aromas into the tea leaf. Yankee Tea Factory in Darjeeling is doing something similarly for a special tea blend that they're making for Big Heart Tea, where they're roasting Tulsi with the black tea in the final drying process, so that as the tea is drying, all of those aromas from the Tulsi is getting into the tea. for those that are interested in those types of characters and flavors and whatnot. But Satemwa offers a green tea that's roasted. But in that case, the roasting is like the Kilgreen step versus the drying process. I think they're still using like the quality dryers versus the like the wok or the hand drying, like what I showed with the Dragon Well. So yeah, there's lots of diversity, and it really is a testament to how intriguing tea can be and how limitless it can be. Hi, Adam. So yeah, Jeremy, if that answered your question about tea roasts, and we could even dive deeper, especially if we're talking about, like the post-process type of roasted tea. So, difference between charcoal roast and electric roast, as well as the degree of roast that you can take it, and how many times you roast. So, like Yangchas, Weishan, oolong teas, the number of times a tea is roasted plays a big role in the value of that tea. So currently the Rogue Way that we have in stock is triple roasted. And usually we would have taken maybe like the double roasted, just because that is a fair fit with the price point of the North American market. But we were a little too late to get the double roast, and the only stock that was left was the triple roast. So this season we have a little bit higher quality of Rogue Way, just because there was an additional roast on it. So yeah. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Elise. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. Glad the weekend has started.
Yeah. Happy Friday.
Likewise.
That's cool. It's like your son is like watching over you. He's watching over your gung fu, making sure you don't make any mistakes.
Perfect, right?
Yeah. I got that too. Bitcoin is sitting right behind me, making sure I don't make any mistakes. Drop any food, more like it.
What, do you have snacks on the table?
I don't, but on the drive over, I ate my lunch, and yeah, he got some of it. Of course, he always gets some of it. I can't not give him snacks or whatever he desires, but he wants more. His hunger is never satisfied.
Just raising the volume here. So you're talking about roasting?
Yeah, I was talking about roasting of tea. Yeah, because one of my clients is kind of new to selling tea, and so he has a lot of questions about how he can best communicate the processing and the story of the tea to his customers. And so he's asking a lot of detail, which is great. Like, I always encourage any, like, not even just startups, but any tea company that is sourcing tea from us and wanting to communicate the quality and the values of the tea to their customers, to ask deeper questions. Don't just listen on the website as a green tea from China. Like, really dig deep. And I try my best to proactively provide as much information, but at the same time, you can't overload. There is a lot of information that can be offered, like degree of withering, degree of roasting, like, and every step of the process for every tea that we sell, which we've had, over 400 teas in the catalog up to now. It'd be a lot of data to present in our catalog, and So the data is accessible. Of course, if someone reaches out to me and asks for it, I'm always just like super happy to provide it because it means that they are caring and they are wanting to make that a part of their brand story and their customers' education. So yeah, he had a question specifically around roasting, and he had bought 2 different teas that had roasted in the title of the tea. And so he wanted to know the difference between that and like what's the degree of roasting on this or that. And one of the tea is like a roasted oolong, like a Taiwanese style, like roasted oolong, which is really kind of probably what most people expect. But then the other one was a roasted green tea, and the roasting signified the Kilgreen style because that producer does both steaming and roasting for their Kilgreen. So yeah, I kind of wanted to. The conversation earlier was more focused on kind of the roasting during processing versus like post-process roasting, which a lot of teas actually are. Like the drying is actually like the roasting. They won't use like an oven or like what's called in India they like to call it the quality dryer. Like the conveyor belt system that runs it through the oven. They'll actually dry the tea in a wok, like Dragon Well, traditional Dragon Well at least. And then the tea I'm drinking right now is a sticky rice Mao-cha Shengpuer.
Nice. I love those.
Yeah, so this is not like the sticky rice and the pink tuo. This is like real Shengpuer. Like it's Mao-cha, so it's not even pressed. And I wasn't able to pull up the video. Hopefully I'll find it and I'll share it another time. But the last time I was at this farmer's place, he was roasting. He was showing us the process on this sticky rice Shengpuer because it's a very popular tea in our catalog because it's just like it's so sexy and just like appealing, the aroma from the herb. And so I asked the farmer if I could document the, where does the herb come from? What does it look like? How is it harvested? And how is it integrated into the tea? Because it's always kind of a mystery to us how the aroma gets introduced into the tea. And came to find out that they actually, the final drying step for the Mao-cha is done with the herb.
So is it scented with that herb, kind of like jasmine green teas? No.
So like truly scented like jasmine teas, they'll like cure the leaf with the flowers. Sometimes even in a vacuum chamber to like get the aromas to come together. In the case of the sticky rice, they roast the 2 things together, and then they separate the herb out after they roast it.
Okay.
So they kind of like it accelerates the aroma exchange with the heat and the roasting.
And is that okay? So this is the process with the Mao-cha that you're drinking, but with the other version, which I before you clarified that this is the Mao-cha that you're drinking.
Yeah.
Is it the same? Would they?
I have no idea. I know nothing about factory commercial teas. I only know handcrafted artisanal teas. So that's those pink tuos, like they're a very mass-produced thing. And actually, they usually use shu puer, like cooked puer, for those rather than shengpuer. This is like a very small-scale, traditional, small batch thing. And actually, this style of tea is like. It's not super common, like when I asked to like document the story of how they make it, the farmer was like kind of surprised, kind of like, oh, like that's interesting. You guys are interested in this type of tea. Okay, sure, we'll show you. I don't think that there's a whole lot of domestic demand for this type of tea, but sticky rice puer is just like it's so. widespread here. Like any tea house you go to, especially a Chinese style tea house, is gonna have those pink tuos. Like that's just very common. And that flavor, you know, the American palate likes sexiness. You know, we're really attracted to sexy teas. So, and sexy being like, you know, come on real strong with a strong aroma, thanks to Tivana, you know. So I think that's why the sticky rice pour has done really well here in the States. Hi, Jeremy.
Oh, there you are. I did the video. Yeah.
You're here.
Okay. For some reason, when you put in speaker view, you vanish. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always like to keep it in gallery view just so I can see everybody,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that too.
Cool. So Jeremy, what did you think of my short little explanation there?
That was good. I actually came in late, so I wanted to make sure I watched it before I joined you.
Yeah. Okay.
I was kind of like on delay of my own.
Me too. I was on delay, so. But it's Friday.
No. No, I think that, I mean, that really will.
Are you still hearing Jeremy, Elise?
I'm not. Yeah, I think he froze a little bit.
Frozen.
He'll come back. You know, the beauty of technology. That's why I always keep myself plugged into a hard line because he moves.
This is that Tia was telling you about last time. The A. Tellen Company, cast iron oolong.
Cool.
There you are.
Yeah, Jeremy, you're a little.
Oh,
you really are a little delayed today. Maybe you got to trim some of the beard. You know, get yourself some more agility. Oh, now he's gone. He's really gone now.
maybe he's trying to.
Yeah, maybe he'll get on a different connection. Yeah.
He start kind of situation.
So, I saw you messaged me about that article.
Yes.
Yeah, we should talk about that. Like, that's something that's super important to me, even more than tea, even more than all my work and everything is that exact thing that you pointed out from that article. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see what your reflection on that was.
I'm trying to remember the exact quote. It was something in regards to us having no connection to the production of our food.
Yep, exactly. That's it.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. And it's interesting in regards to the fact that, when you take it in context of the line of work that I'm in, which is like, yeah, we're both still in the tea industry, but I'm working, I've built my career has developed in such a way that I'm like more on the high volume global supply chain end of things. Mm-hmm. So I see the degree to which people are far more disconnected from what they consume. I mean, I guess there's a certain degree to which I've just kind of resigned myself to that. It's not, I mean, as I'm sure you can appreciate, it doesn't only manifest itself on the tea side. And where I'm going with this is that recently, maybe if you look on my Facebook profile, my timeline, maybe a week or so before that article went out, I shared an article from 538 that kind of gives a crash course in like how the global supply chain works and how people don't really understand how every single thing that you have in your hands has to go through one channel or another. And like, if, this cup, this little cup right here, might have like 3 types of clay that come from like 3 different. I mean, this is not the best example, but 3.
Yeah.
Let's just assume for the sake of our argument, there are 3 types of clay in here that come from 3 different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are different people who move those things around the world, and this article describes it like ballet. So when I shared that article on Facebook, I said to those who think that that my job just consists of playing around with tea and waxing poetic about it in the far corners of the world, I give you a crash course in global supply chain,
Mm-hmm.
and people are starting to see like the impact of that being disrupted during the coronavirus. And I said, my advice, like instead of on your next trip or delivery to the grocery store, don't just buy some produce. And granted, I'm kind of giving people the benefit of the doubt because not enough are buying enough produce in the produce section of the grocery store. I'm getting on a little bit of a soapbox here.
That's fine.
Now, don't just buy produce, but buy some compost and some seeds to grow your own
exactly.
backyard. So
Well,
that
you know, nurseries and hardware stores are having a shortage of seeds and soil, so it's happening. People are doing
Yes,
it.
it is happening. But part of these places, and the article talks about this, is part of these places having a shortage. It's because they stock with what they think they're going to need, and then suddenly everyone is staying home, and they've got 10 times what 10 times the demand that they normally have. I'm just throwing out a number there,
Mm-hmm.
but is still a fraction of the population that's actually growing.
Yeah.
So still this issue of like our capitalist society being very disconnected and devaluing what we consume, what we put in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I felt like you were that line in that article was speaking directly to.
It exactly is. You're so
Like-
right. Yeah. And I made that discovery over 10 years ago. So, like my whole start in my career, I'm a food scientist. So food scientists usually work for Big Food. And I did.
Yeah.
I worked for Big Food for 4 years. I worked for Itoen, which is Big T.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So very similar to how you work in Big T.
Yeah.
I also have that experience. And to be honest, Itoen was like the cleanest, best feeling company I ever worked for in my whole food scientist career. But there were still problems there. And the deeper I dig into the Japanese tea industry, the more problems I find, and a lot of the farmers and the activists and the organic farmers in Japan's like directly point, that company as being the source fault, like, even though they're not exclusively the only company kind of controlling the industry and controlling the prices and kind of the lack in increase in value in tea, but they were the first ones, so that's why like I'm extra passionate about trying to pave the path for real. And a lot of people with my sentiment, a lot of Peace Corps volunteers, my friends from that realm, a lot of the hippies I hang out with, like, they also have very similar sentiments, but they're more about the isolationist viewpoint of like, the best that I can do is just do it on my own. Like, I'll go live in the wilderness and be self-sufficient on my own, which is great, but that's not going to like really move the wheel in the mass scale. What will is finding ways of bringing that consciousness to our current supply chain, to our current system. And so that's my whole goal and what I'm doing. And, the business model of Tea-Led is not just limited to tea, even though I do have the privilege of, first working for Itoen, and that work led me to getting a job working with tea farmers in Hawaii, which led me to working with tea farmers in Japan, which now has led me to becoming, you know, kind of this like tea networker that I've become. But the business model of Tealet itself is something that like I ultimately want to build into something of like an Alibaba for the food industry, where big food companies would be able to manage their supply chain transparently and involve all the parties. So those people that you were talking about in your article, I just see your article here, but yeah, the people, all those like middlemen that you were talking about, like all the different places things have to get aggregated and moved around.
Yeah.
Those things might still be necessary, and I'm not trying to cut those things out. Like when I first started Tealet,
they will be necessary when you're moving things like from far corners of the world. I mean, the global supply chain exists in one way or another.
So yeah, they're necessary. When I first started my work at Tealet, I wanted to cut them all out. I was like such an idealist. I was like, oh, screw them all. Like, let's just let it be the farmer and the consumer. Like, that's, we got to get it down to that. But I've realized over the years that they are very important pieces. And what is more important to instigate to happen is the trust and transparency of information sharing between all of those parties and the value sharing between all those parties, because that's what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my soapbox for the day. So Jeremy, you're back.
Yeah, I'd hunt down a Ethernet cable. So I think the Wi-Fi was just not acting well enough.
That's going to be good. You know, I recommend that Ethernet cable for anything you're streaming or recording or anything like that. It's just more stable to have that.
Yeah, and it's not the best connection to begin with, so, but it's working now.
Good. Yeah, we hear you now just fine.
Oh, shoot. Hello?
You know, the only issue with talking about these things is that they pose a threat, right? And at the core of this whole system is still people. And so that's what I'm trying to navigate is, you know, how to have these conversations, how to inspire this like idealistic dream of transparency while also still like understanding the people that are currently in those systems. I mean, maybe not so much the people that are exploiting those systems and benefiting the most off of those systems, but people like yourself, you know, like that you know, are hardworking people that are part of that system, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, at the end of the day, like what your vision is a very tall order, and I admire you for pursuing it. And I think there need to be people who are like pursuing that kind of mission and those kind of values. It's just you have to. You know, life and job can sometimes be a combination of luck and skills. And I have not, I mean, in my moments of trying to pursue such goals, I've not managed to get the planets to align in quite the way I wanted. And, you know, for right now, I'm working with the hand that I'm dealt, so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely do credit luck to where I am, and timing too. You know, when I started Tealet, I was like, I genuinely honestly thought it was gonna be just like a blog, and I was just gonna do it as a side thing, and I had no, you know, no vision of what my job would have been. You know, I would have figured it out. I have skills. I could have, you know, got a job anywhere. But it's like the first weekend I got back from Japan, I went to a startup weekend, which is like a tech related, entrepreneurship contest. Just because a friend of mine that owns a co-working space in Hawaii said, "Hey, you should come. Like, you just finished your MBA. Like, you can come pitch a business, and it could just be interesting for you to understand how entrepreneurship works." And I went with this idea because I just got back from Japan doing an internship there, and we'd started this nonprofit, the International Tea Farms Alliance, which was like a network of all these farmers from all over the world that had the mission of creating the bridge. And so, like, I really thought I was just going to be like a liaison for that organization and just blog for them and just advocate for them. I didn't really think that I would build like a real feasible supporting business for myself. And I've hardly done that, but I'm still working at it. And there's been a lot of encouragement along the way to, keep me working on it. So that's why I'm still at it. But like, genuinely, I really thought I was just going to be like a blogger and that this would just be a side thing. But first it was the farmers. When they had told me that the nonprofit was not sustainable, which is a very common conversation that's had in the nonprofit world, that, there's just not a funding source, there's not an energy source to keep the motivation running, they said, "You should start a for-profit business." And I said, no, like, tea business is not, it's the U.S. market is not ready for it. I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't have the resources or the capital to do it. But the farmers were the ones that actually planted that seed. It wasn't my idea. It was not my intention. Again, I wanted to just be a blogger, But, that startup weekend that I did, one of the judges was actually a venture capitalist. And he just, like, immediately gravitated towards what I was saying. Even though it was, like, this very far off, like, hippie thing that I was talking about, he was like, "Do you know the customers of these products? Can you verify your relationship with these suppliers? Can you explain to me the pain point of these suppliers, with the farmers, And, I was able to easily do that. Those were questions that were, like, very relevant and easy for me to answer. And he says, "You are exactly what we like to invest in." And I was like, "What?" I was like, he's like, "Yeah, we like to invest in companies that are bringing, traditional analog businesses online. That's our specialty." And he says, "There's no other business more analog than tea." And, this has been exactly, kind of the pitching, or the investment pitch of several different tea-related technology companies, such as Teforia and Teabox, is that, tea is this, like, very kind of ancient business that needs to be brought online. So, yeah. Love this. Both my guests at my tea party are off screen. But that's how it is. It's Friday. There's no rules. We can.
Well, who's the second one?
Yeah. Well, you're getting more water, I can tell, so you're cool. That means you're going to drink more tea.
Huh? Who's the second guest?
It said you're getting more water, so that's cool.
I thought you said both my guests are offspring. That was Bitcoin, and who's the other one?
No, I said off screen. Yeah.
I see. No, still listening though.
Yeah. I think Jeremy had to take a call or something. That's fine. I hope it's a big order, because that's good for business.
Where's Jeremy at? I mean, what's his business?
So he has an online tea shop called Exalted Teas, and he's based out of Terre Haute, Indiana.
Cool.
Hi, Charity. Good to see you. 6 a.m. in the Philippines. You know Charity, right?
Charity's in the Philippines right now?
Yeah. She's, I don't know, Charity. I don't know if I know some confidential information, so I won't share it. But yeah, she's in the Philippines.
Well, I think I know I know the confidential information.
Yeah, I don't think it's like super
secret. She told me about
this
project a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by it.
Yeah, cool. I love people that are passionate about tea, ready, like prepared to, take some risk and do some cool new stuff.
Is she messaging you on Facebook? What's
She's
the
on
deal?
Instagram. She's watching from Instagram. Who
Okay.
else is there? So on Zoom,
Oh,
Charity, if you wanna join the video call, we're actually on Zoom, and the link I'll type it in for you so you can actually come. Maybe she'll come. That'd be so cool. We can
Yeah,
catch
great.
up with her. I'll type in the link.
Hey, I'm over there.
It's 6 a.m. She says. Yeah, that makes
Did she
sense.
just get there and she's jet lagged, or is she just crazy?
Maybe that she's just an early riser. Some people are like that.
Well,
So that's the link, Charity, if you want to join our Zoom call. Just go there, go to that link, and then you'll pop right in. And Adam Sachs and Jeremy Welch we're all three of us are drinking tea together, so you can come join us, and we're just chatting. But I just post to live on Instagram. Unfortunately, it's just the view of, oh, she's going to come. Isn't that nice? That's cool. So yeah, like my whole work was really like luck, right place, right time. And like I don't think that like had I had this kind of vision 5 years ago and tried to start a company, like I would be anywhere near where I am right now. So I think the timing and this whole like pandemic I think is only accelerating the
yeah, for a business,
the
of course,
shift.
you're built to. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Like in many ways, you're built to like, if not maybe not necessarily thrive, but certainly survive and be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Something like this, yes, no.
Yeah. Well, I was like really fortunate in the beginning that I was able to raise some capital, like that investor, like had helped us get some money. So I was able to hire some very skilled people that helped get it off the ground, Jeremy, I muted you and then unmuted you and then now you're muted again. So just letting you know.
Okay, I didn't know if I was decided to step away for a little bit.
Charity, that's fine. If you have no video, that's fine. We love to hear your voice. It'd be nice.
I don't have video?
No, so Charity from our friend Charity in the Philippines, she saw us on Instagram and I invited her to come here.
Oh.
But she says no video. It's 6 a.m., so that's understandable. It's 6 a.m. and like last minute. How do you expect someone to turn their Zoom video on? But yeah, I mean I think that's like a constant challenge, and this seems to be like a kind of revolving conversation with all of these like live tea sessions that I've been doing with different industry friends, is that tea is definitely a passion project, and it's hard to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even harder to like have an empowered staff that you can pay well. I know very few companies, even like the highly regarded ones, that pay their employees, comparable to, other industries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I say, like, to a degree, I'm resigned to the type of work that I'm doing now, because, like, yeah, I may not be selling a highly personalized, curated catalog like yours, but I'm compensated better than I ever have been.
Yeah, but if you were doing the same job for the...
To have, like, stable, well-paying work in the tea industry is something that I can appreciate in a very profound way, because I had the rug come out from under me when I left Starbucks, and And it was, I mean, this was the sixth position for which I was recruited before I finally got an offer. So it's like, you know, I was at the point where it's like, I don't know what more I'm going to be able to do in the tea industry that actually allows me to make somewhat of a living. So, you know, finding my way into this, it's like, yeah.
But you know, like even for the role you do, if you were doing that role for an oil company or for even Coca-Cola, you probably would be paid even more. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's what I meant to say. That even like big tea companies, like when I worked for Itoen, I was not paid what I should have been paid, but I was okay with it. You know, like I was just happy to be working for a product that wasn't poisoning people. Because like all of the jobs I had before, I like even the organic certified companies and the other like health food companies that I worked for, I felt like I was poisoning people, and
Yeah.
you know I was paid a lot more, but you know.
Well, at least to me, that's kind of the crux of what I was quoting in that article in terms of like people not being connected to the production of what they consume, is like we place more value on these things that really that are poison as opposed to these things that act, as opposed to having an appreciation and valuing what actually nourishes us.
Exactly. Charity, are you going to turn your mic on? You could chat with us.
Is it not on?
Oh, yeah. So there we go. We can hear you now. Hi.
Charity.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning or good afternoon to you guys.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm
Have you
been home now for
a while, or
what?
How long have you been in the Philippines lately?
Oh, since last year, since
Okay. Wow.
August.
Wow.
Yeah, I was supposed to be going back soon, but well, that ain't happening for who knows when.
Yeah.
so
Wow.
I'm
since
stuck at home.
August.
So
Yeah, I haven't seen you since Portland, huh? Is that the last time we saw each other? Or Seattle?
Yep.
Yeah, no, Seattle.
Portland Tea Fest, yeah.
Yeah, I saw you at Northwest Tea Fest, I think, 3 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe Northwest Tea Festival might be my first experience. What's the word I'm looking for? First back in the U.S. in over a year.
Wow.
First, maybe if it still happens, that is.
How's it been for you? Is the situation pretty calm there, or everybody staying home calmly, or is there protesting, or what's the sentiment?
Well, the quarantine is like a stay at home. Only one person from the family is allowed out of the house once a week to buy groceries. All other things are closed. And this person that goes out has to have a pass from the local community. And if you don't get the pass, you're not allowed in the grocery.
Wow.
All public transport is closed or stopped. And the food supply is, they're having issues keeping up food supply and demand because workers just can't get to work. They're not allowed out of their front gate, basically. So, I mean, it's relatively calm where I'm at, but yeah, I don't know. Kind of like bracing for the worst here.
Wow, that's
Because
incredible.
eventually people are going to go hungry. So that's us. That's me.
So you say that things are relatively calm where you are. Does does that imply that it's more rural perhaps and more like local food production, or
Yeah, I'm in a rural spot, but there is hardly any local food production around us. I mean,
Wow.
we tried to start our own garden because we have some space, but the soil is this nasty red clay that is nothing grows in it.
oh wow.
Wow.
So, most of the vegetables here are grown up in the high mountain areas, and some of it is coming through, some of it is not. But we found somebody that's willing to drive to a certain point and another person willing to drive to another point, and I think they throw vegetables across the border or across the checkpoints so
Wow.
that neither has to cross. Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
Wild. Dirty.
But yeah, so just it's an interesting situation. I don't even know how to explain it anymore.
What you're having to go through, or what you're describing.
Yeah, you guys have it easy in the US.
I know. I it's like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking of this friend of mine who I got to know over the last year who kind of shit posts a lot of memes on Facebook that are to the effect of like, oh, our government is setting such a dangerous precedent on our civil liberties right now, and I'm just like, oh, please get over yourself. And I'm listening to you, and I'm like, yeah, no, this really puts nonsense like that in perspective.
Mm-hmm. Also, in the medical side, there truly is a shortage of PPEs. So nurses and doctors are like getting infected at very high rates here. So, and like heads of departments of hospitals are dying because of overexposure. So, I mean, I don't want to even go near a hospital in this, even if I had to have some emergency non-related to COVID. So we're just trying to sit on our couches and not like, fall out of a tree or some other, reason for going to a hospital, because it's sort of, it's not nice to go to a hospital right now.
When people tell you stay healthy, it carries different weight for you, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Is everyone in the US?
Yeah, all three of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
On this call right now, yeah.
So Adam, last I heard you were in Puerto Rico. Did you move back then, or?
Well, sort of. My life has been a bit of a roller coaster the past however many months. So I got in October, I got a really big job offer with a company called Martin Bauer. It's a German company that has a U.S. sales office in New Jersey. The company I used to deal with when I was at Starbucks, and I accepted that offer. And the offer kind of came very quickly and out of the blue, and such that I first got a call recruiting me for the offer right after we had bought an apartment in San Juan. So long story short, I'm here in New Jersey, and my family is still in Puerto Rico, and up until the virus hit, I was going back there about once a month. And down the road, eventually the idea is for them to move out here. Obviously that has gotten complicated in light of what the uncertainty surrounding everything. So yeah, I'm mostly here in New Jersey, but I'm also kind of pre COVID, I was back and forth between here and San Juan a little bit.
Okay.
And Jeremy, do you want to introduce yourself to Charity?
Mhm. Yeah. So I run a little tea, I guess, online shop, and I'm based out of Indiana. So I guess I'm a Midwest representative of the tea culture world. And there's few of us, but hopefully we're growing quicker.
That's good.
Charity, how is your tea business doing? Are you guys still active? And
Yeah, I mean, we went online a couple of years ago and closed the cafe, so I kind of didn't have a lot of employees and expenses left. So I just still keep employing my employees that I have. I don't have a plan of firing them or letting them go or furloughing or anything. This has been okay, enough to keep everything afloat. So that's good.
awesome, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were kind of just touching on that. Maybe you heard at the end of that conversation earlier that we were having about kind of the challenges of financially supporting yourselves and employees on the business of tea. It's unfortunate because tea is such a highly valued commodity, yet the business of it is such a challenge.
I think it's just more of a challenge because specialty tea is the big challenge. Because everybody that still comes to me is just flavored blend. Where's Earl Grey? I think that's it. It's just sort of getting over that hump of try this tea and they'll never go back.
Mm-hmm.
So tea in itself is a challenge. Specialty tea is, I guess, extra tricky.
But I don't know. I'd venture in saying that even the business of Earl Grey is still a challenge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a challenge.
It's not interesting.
Earl Grey specialty tea. So I agree that specialty tea is a challenging business, but yeah, I kind of when you're dealing with commodity level stuff and CTC and Fannings, it's and people, that's the stuff where people are buying really big volumes. The full leaf side of it, which is much more specialized, by its nature, it's smaller. And I was having a conversation with my boss about this yesterday about how he's saying, I used to do this, and you can spend as much time as you spend selling a kilo of specialty tea as you'll spend selling a container of this tea, of a CTC.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But the work involved with moving a container of CTC and the payout from that, I don't know. I mean, that's what I like to challenge too. It's what I challenge. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I look at, I guess my take on it is, so the work, it's on my end, if I'm selling less than a container, it's actually more complicated and more work. But I kind of look at it as okay, if I spend the same amount of time on, a container versus a kilo, maybe looking at the volume is not necessarily the right metric. I think, or at least to a degree, I think certainly you and I can appreciate that, we're passionate about the type of tea that's in your catalog. So it's even if I sell only a kilo of it, if I can, if that kilo is something that can sustain a business, then that's fine. Versus selling an entire container of it. Now, I think to a degree, my boss's mindset is like, you know, he also does have, and I think you'll appreciate this, like one thing that he is always thinking about is trying to support the producers. And if he's working with producers who are producing X amount of volume of fannings and that's what they're set up to do, then he wants to help them continue to be able to sell that and not be left with inventory. So, you know, there's I look at both. I look at both as having a certain amount of value, but you know, I get excited about. Obviously, I get a lot more excited about the stuff that's in here than the full container loads that I'm contracting for a full year.
Yeah. I don't know. That's you just opened up a very deep conversation that we could have. I don't know if we should go down that route, but you know, thinking about the producers, making a container load of tea is a lot of work. That's the work I'm talking about. You know, not necessarily the work that the broker does or that the wholesaler does or the importer does, but you know, the physical work. And then also the work on the environment too, required to do that. Those are the things that I'm looking at. Vastly different, you know, 1 kilo versus a container. But no, you're right. Like the sales of it, like that part, that work is about the same amount of work and time, but from the producers end, it's a lot of work, you know. We've gotten into doing like larger commissions, and I feel bad for the producers, you know, like they have to like pack a bunch of tea. I mean, even the packing is just, and they're small teams, they're not huge teams, so you know, they take on a lot of work, and then the cash flow from those deals end up being the same, if not lower, than the cash flow of just like putting together like 100-kilo order of really nice teas. Which, you know, they'd rather do than, you know, filling a container.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a producer that's set up to do smaller volumes and it's a lot more hands-on versus, you know, we do a lot of volume out of Argentina, which is like throughout its history in terms of tea production is a lot more mechanized.
Yeah.
It's more work for them to sell less tea than it is to sell more tea.
Yeah.
That selling a limited container load or a single pallet is more of a headache over there.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Mechanization.
So do you guys do this every week, Elise, or is this a daily thing, or what? Like,
yeah, I do this.
Bring me up to speed.
I do this every day, Charity.
Okay. All right. Well, I have other meetings at 6 a.m. as well, so.
No, yeah, and you don't have to come every day. That's why I do it every day, is so that like when people can participate, they will. So, yeah, I appreciate that you came in and contributed. I don't always have like the group thing going on, but I definitely like broadcast some little show of sorts where, you know, I'll just like give industry updates, because that's something that's been kind of missing. World Tea News finally put out their release after 3 weeks, but you know, there's been kind of a lack of industry updates and such. So I try my best to dig up what's going on, or at least update on what's going on in the logistics or the industry of different countries, and then do a little education piece, and then I open it up and let people come in and drink tea together. But on Thursdays, there's something a bit more structured and a lot more social, called Tea Talks, that my friend Sam in LA does, and I support it, and that's what I broadcast on Thursdays. And that's usually a much bigger group of, it's a lot of tea business owners, which is really cool. You know, it's like you can talk shop and, you know, talk about things that you're learning with your online marketing and with your community building. Or it's just tea lovers too. But like yesterday we had 14 people in the room together, and we'll like break out into different breakout rooms and have more intimate conversations with each other. But this is like directly results of the pandemic and the isolation that everybody's feeling right now. So this is just a way of keeping the community connected and then also helping businesses too, because even though like online stores can still be open, but I don't know if online tea sales has really just gone through the roof just yet. So we all kind of have to like become innovative about how we get bigger audiences buying tea online and getting educated about tea online and whatnot.
So I read, I don't know if you're familiar with Sinensis Research. It's a new consulting outfit. Okay, so they released a new set of data yesterday that was it was based off of surveys that he had taken over the course of about 2 weeks with U.S. With like tea businesses, like mostly brick and mortar shops around the country, and apparently those that did switch, like those that were either only online sales or switched to only online sales, saw their online sales go up by 7% in since the pandemic hit.
7%.
So,
woohoo!
But like 7%.
Sorry.
So I would agree with that.
It's a large number of businesses that took this survey over the course of 2 weeks. So it's by no means like the end all be all of what the landscape looks like, but that gives you some indication of the pulse of where things are right now.
What is happening in the U.S. with unemployment and are a lot of people losing jobs, or is this going to have something down the road where people now have some money in their bank, but in a couple months it's going to be none, or? So you don't hear a lot of news about that here.
So I believe we're at 4 million unemployment claims have been filed in the past 3 weeks, whatever it was. It's like by far a record, and there have been stimulus payments that have gone out, one-time stimulus payments that have gone out to people, up to $1,200 per individual, and like $500 or $600 if for dependents, there's a small business program that the government put together, which was very botched in that some large companies got a bunch of that money that was supposedly supposed to be earmarked for small businesses. So and the money ran out. They've released another one that's supposed to grant aid to small businesses. Those are some of the highlights. Elise and Jeremy, you can add to that if you've.
No, Charity, you're right. Like there have been, like Adam listed off all of those programs which have been faulty and have holes in them. A lot of people haven't received their stimulus money, and a lot of businesses haven't received that payroll protection. So yeah, people are unemployed. Landlords have some states or some counties or jurisdictions have made evictions. They're not supporting evictions right now. So some people are saved from that. But even though they're saved from their evictions, they're still going to have to pay their back rent, 2 months down the line or however long they get that extension. And the government, they're still thinking of new programs of how to keep this going. But yeah, there is a very large group of individuals that are looking at a very uncertain future, especially people working in the service industry, which, a lot of our companies support. A lot of our tea companies supply to restaurants and, even have restaurants or, service staff themselves. So it is hard. But yeah, to the point of like online tea sales increasing, yeah, of course. Like I've even seen an increase just from my friends or local people here in Vegas just reaching out wanting to buy tea. So we have seen like a slight increase, but I mean a 7% increase on the status quo that was already there is like hardly enough to support
Yeah.
what needs to be supported with online tea sales. But I mean, I think it still means that there's a lot of room for growth if we engage the online community and let them know, hey, these are a lot of really great, incredible local businesses that you can be supporting and safely buy your tea online. So I think there's still more work to be done in that area.
I think it was just a total uncertainty, complete uncertainty that everyone just sort of saved money. But the whole notion of what's essential, what's non-essential goods probably have been introduced to people for the first time. Mm-hmm. So now they have to really prioritize, and it's more likely that they're going to focus on things that they love the most. So I can imagine that the tea drinkers will stay tea drinkers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We just got to keep nudging them,
Yeah.
Charity, to put things in perspective, one thing I didn't point out, like, I think we're at 16% unemployment right now. The Depression, we were at 25% during the Great Depression. That was where it peaked. So we're a ways off from it being the worst, but 16% is pretty damn bad. It's as bad as it's been since the Great
Depression. Okay. Relevant to the tea industry is that there's now an ongoing conversation, a conversation that I've been trying to instigate for months now. And, people have been receptive to it, but no one's really been passing it along and keeping it flowing and evolving. And this conversation is, like Jeremy, you brought up that thing of essential, non-essential. It's kind of related to this. And there was a really incredible article that came out, I think it might have been the New York Times, some restaurant owner, a very, long-standing elite restaurant owner wrote this incredible article about her journey of closing her restaurant. I think it was a her. I'm sorry if I misgendered.
It's Gabrielle Hamilton Prune. I love that restaurant here.
So I guess you read that article then.
I read that article late last night. I've got a cookbook. I've read her book as well. She's dynamite. She's really remarkable.
Yeah, so it's a very good article. I'll go ahead and share that article just so others can read it. Really beautifully written. It's just nice reading, but it hones in on a very important message about the instability of the hospitality industry even before COVID, and that we were working in a system. Even though chefs and restaurateurs were raving about, all their openings and how great, like the craft food movement and the craft cocktail movement is doing, underneath everything, no one was really talking about how unstable it was. And, 2 days into shelter in place or lockdown or whatever you want to call it, restaurants were already up in arms. Oh, save us, we're on fire, like GoFundMe. And it's like, wow, if we really had a stable foundation, it would have taken much longer than 2 days for that to happen. It would have taken, months for that to happen. And so that's what her article kind of hones in on. And Kevin Alexander, who, used to write for Thrillist, he wrote a book I also recommend that's about this exact same topic, but his book it's a full book, and he kind of profiles different foodie cities, and kind of like their rise and decline. Portland, San Francisco, even Tennessee and Chicago, like all of these like really fast growing hipster foodie scenes over the past decade. And so he was one of the first people to kind of bring it up, and that like brought a lot of light to me because that affects our business because we supply tea to these places, and a lot of our businesses, like our tea shops and the tea brands that we love, like we may love them for their curators and their tea knowledge, but like the bread and butter of their business, the backbone of their business is wholesale to restaurants. Like that's what keeps them alive. And so if these specialty restaurants don't reopen after this pandemic is over, which the article, really highlights, is that we really have to think clearly about how, not only to deliver food to people, but how are we going to get tea to people? Because a lot of people get access to tea, be it iced tea or tea bags or however they get their tea. They get it in hospitality. How are we going to get it? It's going to be a really interesting, kind of evolution and growth for the hospitality industry.
Yeah, the best line in that article for me, and Charity, if you look on my Facebook feed, it's up. It's like one of the more recent things I shared. I shared it late last night, so that's another place you can find it. She said something to the effect of like, the virus was like the what for the restaurant industry was like the surgery or the appendectomy that we suddenly needed to get when we were uninsured. So it's like the rug coming out from underneath the hospitality industry, and I think to your point, Elise, like they've talked a big game and talked about how they've grown and been so successful because they've reached the point where they just kind of accepted their sort of tenuous success and slim margins as like the status quo, and that's the way it's going to be until our culture and our country values food as a form of community and connecting and nourishment, as opposed to like a monetized capitalistic commodity, which is like she touches on that toward the end of this article of like talking about this notion of monetizing customers and how like that's just is anathema to the core of what her restaurant has always been, until there's like a shift in consciousness over that. And like, this is the reality of running a restaurant. It's like, but like before I left Seattle, the last time I saw Charity in person, I was talking to her because I wanted to start a cafe and I was interested in like sourcing tea from her. And, if it were another type of business, I'm sure it would have been a lot easier for me to find investors that would have been interested. That's the risk and the resistance that you can, if you take a moment to scratch the surface and study and learn about the restaurant industry, you can see that. But if you're just someone, it's interesting to me to watch some of these interviews with restaurateurs happening in the media now, and how these interviewers are just, they have no idea. They have no idea that this is the reality. They just take the restaurant industry for granted, and having worked in it for so many years, like I've seen how people are like that. You know that they're like that if they tip less than 18% as a routine. That they don't understand that when you tip that low, in light of where minimum wage has not moved, then it's hard for the people in that world to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go on about this for a while.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about this because you obviously know a lot more than I do, but I was talking to a friend the other day, and he had a restaurant out in California. So he was given the option, he had to close, but he was given the option to do takeout service.
Yeah.
And he said he couldn't do it because he would actually take a loss every day he did it.
Mm-hmm.
So even though the state was acting like altruistic and say, well, we're still going to give you the opportunity for for some sort of financial support, he said it would have been a loss. So he had to shut it down completely. And then he was talking about once the restaurants open up again, the idea that the customers are just going to snap back and it's going to be a full house every night. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
correct. And
he's
there's
kind
also
of,
a cost go ahead.
yeah, and he's sort of stuck
Mm-hmm.
because it's like all the concessions that the states and the government made to keep him have some business would actually be detrimental to him if he followed through with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how common that is.
Pretty common.
Is it just shut down entirely? Are some of them can some of them sustain themselves?
I mean, it's a case by case business. There are restaurants that have a business model where like converting to, but there are restaurants that either have a business model where converting to only takeout service actually can work. I've got a friend in Dallas who I'd say, maybe 50% of her business was takeout to begin with. So pivoting was not as complicated for her as many others. And she only did like 2 full service, like tasting menu type dinners a week. So that, and I've got a friend who has another restaurant in Dallas that, where like a lot of their business is through a fish market and catering, and he's also a marketing professional. So like pivoting was something that was feasible for him. But then there are people who I'm sure, like your friend, and where like the business is not built to sustain itself on takeout alone.
Well, it's interesting what he did. He supplemented himself by offering takeout for a lunchtime rush. But all of those customers were on lunch break from their jobs, and they'd walk over to his restaurant and they'd pick up the food. So he said it was a nice secondary source of income, but they're not working. So there's just, so it's weird. He had it in place to help him sustain the business. But even that he couldn't fall back on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's one point toward the end of this article in the New York Times where she talks about how because she still lives, I guess, either right above or very close to her restaurant, and how she's like sitting in the empty restaurant, she's listening to the ice machine like dump ice into the bottom of the machine. And I'm thinking, your restaurant's closed. Why do you even have your ice machine still turned on? That's costing you money. Mm-hmm. It's like the point I'm making is like there's a lot of overhead associated with keeping the lights on. Mm-hmm. And if there isn't enough revenue being generated, which like if you don't have people in there, if someone orders takeout, they're not going to sit there for an hour and order a couple of bottles of wine or a couple of cocktails.
Yeah.
They are going to have a set order. They're going to show up. They're going to pick it up, and it's not going to be continual. And the volume of people ordering takeout, depending on the type of business. I mean, some people might not want that type of food for takeout. There's certain food that, like, I'm more inclined to order for takeout than other types of food. Mm-hmm. So.
And then the main channels that are supporting volume for takeout, such as Uber Eats and Postmates, take such a big cut from their orders. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation. And if I was a restaurant owner, I would just choose like your friend, But I know several restaurants are choosing to continue going at a loss, and I feel like it's like a marketing thing. So like they're providing to the community, and a lot of restaurants are actually like giving free food out. Like they're not even trying to make money. They're just like, it's a marketing opportunity, community building opportunity you have those resources, you have those overhead things already going off, but they're working their asses off because it's just like the owner and their wife, like banging it out. Maybe one employee there helping them out, and they're working everything to get it going, but it's keeping them relevant. Like every news outlet in every city is definitely listing off all the restaurants that have takeout and all the restaurants that are supporting, our frontline, workers and then also, people in need. So yeah, it's not a winning. There's no financial winning in hospitality right now. Maybe the fast food restaurants are doing well.
Yeah.
Drive-throughs.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know.
I don't know that like any business is immune to this. My brother-in-law, he's a ER doctor in St. Louis, Missouri, and he's like almost head, and he had to reorganize his schedule because he had sort of an excess of doctors, because surgeons, endocrines, all these specialists, they don't work the ER. They take all these elective surgeries for people. And so they're not being paid as well because all electives are being canceled. Normal visits to doctors aren't happening.
Mm-hmm.
But yet hospitals still have these people on payrolls. So basically he said his hospital is also losing money.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think business Zoom had been immune to this.
Zoom's doing pretty
We've done
good.
just fine.
Amazon's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Walmart's probably doing okay. I see that Walmart parking lot so full every time I drive past it.
Whole Foods has done all right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, part of Amazon, so.
Yeah. But, I was saying this in an industry update the other day. I saw Coca-Cola is at 25% reduction of capacity of what they're usually at. So, I was always thinking, oh yeah, Coca-Cola, companies like that are probably doing well. People are still going to Walmart and getting those luxuries or, those enjoyments in their life, those cheap enjoyments in life. But because of all of the no concerts, and then I'm sure to a certain degree, like no self-serve drinking in fast food restaurants, like their volumes are significantly lower right now.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into great detail, but yes, food service is a huge part of something like Coca-Cola. It's affecting me and it's stressing me out a little bit because, we've got some of our biggest clients who like most of their business is through food service. And I'm talking like the McDonald's of the, we don't sell directly to McDonald's, but we've got clients who sell to the McDonald's of the country. And when McDonald's is like buying like closer to 20% of what they normally buy, then, we've got clients saying, hey, can we push our contracts out like much further than would make you comfortable? And it's like, well, shit, like, how are we going to make that work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're right, Charity. It's affecting everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So anyhow,
but
I don't know where to go from there.
There are a lot of positives, and that's what I always like to like bring into these conversations that we have is like it's important to identify the negatives and be in touch with the realities, but then at the same time, we can find the opportunities. Like this is a good opportunity for people. They're cooking more at home and they're struggling financially more. So they're having to like really evaluate, okay, where are my values in life? Like, I only have this much money right now and I need to save some because I have no idea where we're going to be 6 months from now or 8 months from now. Like let me figure out what I really value in life. And I think that that's an incredible opportunity for a lot of positive change to happen. So.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying earlier. It's just like everybody is being introduced for the first time. This is an essential good. This is non-essential.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably something they never really even processed before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it could just be a reorganizing of priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you savor the most, whatever you enjoy the most, that will always stay with you. So I can understand Coke getting knocked down, unless they're trying to save money and they're downgrading to like Sam's Choice Coke, saving the extra 50 cents. But I think it's just people are realizing it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Or hopefully that's what they're realizing.
Yeah, I think you're giving human beings a little too much credit. It's because so much of Coke's business has just simply been interrupted, and places to whom they sell have shut down. So, I mean, if you don't have your business, even if you're a restaurant that hasn't shut down and has pivoted to, this speaks to what your friend was dealing with, has pivoted to takeout. If you're buying enough soda to sell enough people who are just ordering takeout versus people who are coming in from 11 a.m. to midnight every day, the volume is going to be significantly lower. And when you're thinking about the fact that people may not be interested in buying a Coke from you if they're not actually sitting in the restaurant, they can just buy it from a convenience store instead for like a fraction of the price and buy like a whole bottle of it there. And then it's like, how much Coke do you really need to order for the restaurant? And that means that Coke takes a hit on their business because the demand for their volume is not where it was. So yeah, I don't think it. I think there may be some degree to which people are re-examining their values in the way you're framing it, but I think that has a minimal impact compared to just the practical implications of interrupting the supply chain to the degree that it's interrupted.
I think it's best to be as optimistic as possible. But realistically, we're people of habit. And the question is this an extreme enough happening in your life to change your habits? And we don't know that yet.
Mm-hmm.
We won't know that until it plays out. But we instinct
or extreme enough to for our leaders and our lawmakers to actually adjust policy.
Yeah. But it's hard to predict. So
yeah,
stay optimistic, but don't become delusional.
Yeah. I'm hopeful more than I'm optimistic. My hope gets tested a lot lately, especially this morning when I read about these comments about injecting disinfectant into our bodies. But yeah,
Charity, you heard about that one, right?
Philippines.
I heard, but I don't exactly know. I saw something on Twitter this morning. Clorox advising people not to ingest their product or something. But I don't really what's the story, the backstory?
The Oval Office occupant in the U.S. has been giving daily what are allegedly press briefings. They're more like propaganda briefings. I don't watch them. I read about the headlines with them because I can't stand listening to him for more than 30 seconds. Yesterday, he was encouraging people to inject themselves with disinfectant as a way to cure themselves from the coronavirus. So Clorox and various companies and doctors had to say, do not do this. You will die if you do this.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, our leadership has definitely gone to that delusional point, Jeremy. So I don't think the delusion is only going to come from over optimism.
It's hard to sort of straddle that line, isn't it?
Yeah. As I said, my hope gets challenged at times, especially this morning it did.
Yeah. Well, you heard what happened with our mayor of Las Vegas, right? You saw her interview with Anderson Cooper.
So I saw a headline about it. I didn't dig into the details, so give me a summary.
Yeah, it was that the one where she offered to be the control group?
Yeah, well, yeah, she offered all of us to be the control group. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So there's a whole bunch of like Hunger Games memes being made about the Las Vegas community, and it's kind of like how when you travel internationally and people ask you, "Oh, you like Trump? You must be like Trump." Is that all Americans talk like him and act like him? Is the same thing. You know, a lot of Las Vegans are like, "Hey, we're not all like her. Like, we do, you know." Our governor though is on a completely different page, and the thing that's really funny is that Las Vegas city limits is a very interesting thing. So like the Strip that you guys know as Vegas is actually officially not part of the city of Las Vegas. So that woman has no control over the Strip, which is like majority of the economy that we're talking about reopening. She's just very insistent that we need to reopen our businesses here in Las Vegas, and that, you know, people aren't working. So there, you know, there's some validity to that. Of course, yeah, people aren't working, but there's a reason why. And, you know, even if we go off of this stay-at-home order and go back to work, there's going to be no tourists to come support it. So it's kind of, it's like your friend that's going to be losing money every day that they're open. You're going to be paying all the payroll, and there's not going to be enough business to support it. So it's just like, it's really crazy that she'd go on to national news and go on this rant, you know, because just a lot of it doesn't make sense and is actually very disrespectful to not just to the people that are fearing. So like I think that that's a big problem that like keeps revolving in my head, is that like there is this kind of split between the people that think that we should all go back to work and like this is just like the flu and that we got to go back to work and get life back to normal, versus, you know, the other side of like I want complete isolation. And a lot of the perception is that like the group of people that are like wanting face masks and are wanting people to stay home are exclusively motivated by fear in those decisions. And I don't think so, you know, because like I'm kind of on that side. Like if I think about where I am in that spectrum, you know, even though my business is struggling and I'm having to hustle my ass off to figure out how I'm going to survive, I'm on the side of supporting, you know, the decision of containing this and staying safe at home and just being humble and quiet for a bit out of solidarity, not out of fear. I'm not worried. In fact, I think it's possible that I already had it. You know, I went to go give blood at the very beginning of this, and they never used it. And I have like, I'm a universal donor. Like my blood is usually used like this when I give it, but they never used it. So it means that my, you know, because like when you give blood, they test your red blood cells to make sure that you don't have any kind of infection or something, and they won't use your blood if you're sick or something. Even though I wasn't sick, you know, but there's a lot of people that have had it and didn't have any symptoms. So it's very possible that I already had it, but like, so yeah, I'm not afraid of it, but I do want to support that solidarity of supporting the community. And so I think it's like, it's also coming from a place of fear if you want to reopen all the businesses and completely kind of backtrack all of the work that we've done over the past month and a half to, you know, try to contain it. I don't know.
I don't know if there's ever been a real, because everything is so politicized. I don't think we've ever actually had the time to have an honest conversation about this or how pandemics work. No matter how well we contain it now, there's most likely going to be like a second wave in the fall and another wave next spring. You know, about like how it works and how we can anticipate this, but everything is now, what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And without that conversation about, well, let's talk about what's going to happen later in the year or next year. It's like, I know Indiana University, they're already making contingency plans to not open up the school next year. I mean, they're already anticipating that next year is going to be all online. So it's hard to sort of, I don't know. You know, it just seems like everything is so politicized that we can't ever really get to the root of what to expect next.
Yeah, you're right. It is very politicized. I think even more so than where we were before all this happened. Like we're even more separated, and the lines of separation are like multiple. You know.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it's politicized, but I kind of disagree on the separation point. The poll number, if you look, I look closely at, I read a lot of 538, so I'm paying attention to poll numbers a lot by virtue of that. The support for, support for the actions governors are taking on the state level, local leaders such as mayors in general, and the support for the broader stay-at-home, shelter-in-place measures is unusually bipartisan, considering like how polarized the country has been over the past. At least over the past 4 years. You know, depending on if you want to argue like the degree of polarization there was before then, but there is like. Based on those numbers, we are actually less divided now than we were before this pandemic in quite some time. Unfortunately, like it's tragic that like these protests that are going on are getting a lot of airtime on the media. They would have you believe that yes, we are more divided. We're not. These protests are small. They're getting a lot of attention. If like protests of that size for leftist causes got that amount of attention, then you might wonder, but they never do. These protests were well coordinated by large conservative groups associated with people like Betsy DeVos and the Koch brothers. So the broader poll numbers actually tell a different story.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious. In that article, does he have a breakdown state by state?
Which article?
The 538, the polling.
I'm
just it's like Indiana for an example.
Some of
them
it
is
so. The most recent article. Every Friday, 538 does a series called Pollapalooza, where they do like some polling highlights from the week. So there's one that was out today, and it speaks to some of that.
Okay.
I can't remember what the headline is, what the lead is, but yeah, it's one of the ones from today.
It's like certain states. It's like I know here, Holcomb's Republican. But Republicans are kind of revolting against it. So it'd be interesting to see, like state by state, which ones are.
Yeah.
A small handful of Republicans are revolting against it.
I'd be curious to see if it broke down and see which states or which cities are particularly like people are revolting against their own leaders in a way.
It does provide some of that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's some polling around that. They looked at, so there's a different article, it's not part of the Pollapalooza series, where they talk about, and this article kind of pissed me off because I thought it was not really focusing on it mentions the important issue in passing in the concluding paragraph, which I talked about how like conservative groups have organized these protests. They're not grassroots by any means. The article talks about the question that the article tries to look at is are states where these protests are happening, are their unemployment numbers more or less impacted by the pandemic? Trying to look at, okay, to what degree were these protests driven by the impact of the pandemic on unemployment? And I'm looking at that, I'm like, that's like a useless premise. Like they are not driven by unemployment. They are driven by people like Betsy DeVos who are funding these protests. I mean, it's verifiable. And they do bring that up in the it's like passing in the concluding paragraph.
Yeah, my comments before weren't actually in relation to those protests. This is just like anecdotal from my own community as well. So like I don't even know
Okay.
how these things are happening because like I just know like there's a lot of conflict happening even among friends, even among people that identify on similar parts of the spectrum, the political spectrum, about like social distancing and how strict should we be about our social distancing and like a business that airs a live stream where all of the artists are in one space together. There's backlash. There's like people like getting up in arms and like and those business owners are saying, oh well, like I'm not going to cater to your fear. Like you're just responding to that in fear, and it's like, well, that itself is fear too. Wanting to be so defiant that oh, I talked to my doctor friend and he says that we don't have to, we're safe here. It's like, yeah, sure, fine, but like out of solidarity, like we should all be supporting each other in this. And that's why I make these things, because like I want to support people that are isolated, completely isolated. Like it's completely not associated at all with the political spectrum. So yeah, I get that point about all these conflicts not being, or not the conflicts, but these different orders are completely bipartisan, which is great, because it means that the different people within the political spectrum are actually agreeing with each other on stuff. That's good. But the division I'm talking about is like not dealing at all with where you are in that spectrum. It's just different people have different perspectives on it, and becoming very vocal and like fighting with each other and like really catty and like Karen-like with each other. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, maybe where you are, Adam, because there is such a long-standing, kind of being the epicenter of the biggest outbreak, maybe there's a bit more solidarity and understanding. I know that there's probably a lot of like, tension, and I've read about a lot of like racial hate crime type of stuff, but like here we're not dealing, and maybe in where you are, Jeremy, we're not dealing with like a huge group of people that are getting cases and dying from it. I mean, there is, but it's not as big. Yet our leaders are telling us that we need to stay in. And so a lot of people are having issues with that, and it's creating that division.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
because we haven't been hit. We had, I think, 80. I don't think we've even had to hit 100 positive cases, and we've only had 5 deaths in our county. But Indianapolis got hit bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I think people are just tracking it. If any city was dependent on mass transit,
Mm-hmm.
like that seems to be a common denominator from the cities that got hit the hardest. And Terre Haute just doesn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Las Vegas.
Oh, our transit's still going, and that's kind of an issue too. Transit, the buses are still running, all of that's still running, and something else I saw, like I go running in the neighborhood, and like even that, I don't wear a mask, and I see people giving me looks. Not all of them, but some people give me a dirty look, like, oh, how dare you be out here without a mask on. And so that's why I understand that conflict. People have different sentiments on it. But then yet, like, every other house has a, like, landscaping company parked out front. This is a freaking desert. And, like, landscapers were considered essential workers that, can be adding extra vectors into our neighborhoods. I just, like, there was another article that came out kind of at the beginning of all of this, that the writer, really stressed that there needed to be a lot more international harmony between, you know, these different jurisdictions about how to handle this, and a bit more, you know, commonality. 'Cause everybody's dealing with it differently, and it can create conflict.
Yeah, I think the whole attitude should be, let's get through this first, and then let's find blame next.
Yeah.
When we're trying to do both at the same time, we're conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
If we just focus on getting through it the best that we can reassess it. Absolutely, and it'll have to be redone. It'll have to be looked into, but let's kind of hold off on that. It's just that when we're at two different places at the same time, we're never going to have any particular focus. Are we looking for the truth, or are we looking for someone to blame?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're all hoping, let's just, you know, get through this as best we can. So we're all hoping we're going to lean that direction. But it's been going on for about 2 months.
Just about.
Yeah.
I mean, about a
3
month and a half was when it really ramped up.
Yeah, but
unless you were in the Seattle area, then it's been going on for a good full 2 months.
Yeah, we were mid-March, so we've only been at it for like 6 weeks. When the governor actually said, you know, started closing down restaurants.
Yeah, it's been the same here.
But I think our city is very much united in they don't care. This is very casual. I think the people that I know best, the people I know well, are all taking this seriously. But you go outside, the streets are packed, stores are packed, very few masks. So it's interesting because these are very nonchalant people, but we haven't had any sort of case spikes. The hospitals aren't overrun. I mean, it's kind of like you're getting mixed messages.
Yeah.
I'm out and about living my life and nothing's happening in my city. So why are you instilling the fear that someone else has in me? So,
like, to give you perspective and contrast in New Jersey is like going to buy, and I realize, Charity, I'm speaking from a position of privilege compared to where you're at right now, but going to buy groceries is now becoming increasingly stressful, where you know, now the grocery stores, they are only allowing a certain number of people to be in there at a given time, and they will not let you in unless you're wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. So, you know, wearing a mask is A, not optional, and B, what you're saying about, you know, you go to places and they're crowded, they won't allow that to happen, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, here they make you, like one of my friends, she went to the grocery store and had to wait in line outside for an hour and a half because they only allow a certain amount in, and then they have to like stand outside like 2 meters apart or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I've been outside only one time, outside of my house and yard, one time in the last 2 months. So I don't know. So
wow.
I'm not sure what is happening out there. I'm not really as relevant as I could be if I was out all the time, but.
So Charity, how are you keeping yourself busy?
Some days it's like, what am I going to do today? And other days I have a lot to do. I don't know. Trying to like work on whatever I can, try to figure out how to get food for our family and a few people that live around us, like set up some group buy kind of thing. Of course, it's all volunteer and You know, I'm like, I don't want to make money off of it. Just, you know, whatever the cost that I pay is what I charge people. But yeah, it's kind of what I've been doing. Just trying to help wherever I can.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Damn, you
How
haven't
about-
left your place in in 2 months, only one time. Wow.
What?
I can't believe that you've only left your place one time in 2 months.
Yeah. And the lockdown's been extended here till May 15th again. So, yeah. So, I'm alone in my thoughts a lot.
Are you drinking a lot of tea?
Actually, not really, because my supply is dwindling where I'm at. So, and I can't go. Like, shipping is getting a little hard to ship stuff. So, yeah. So I'm trying to like conserve it as much as I can. I still drink it every day, but yeah,
Yeah, gotta ration it out.
gotta ration it. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a lot of supply in the US, but it doesn't really help me right now. So,
Well, good, interesting perspective. Yeah, we definitely have it a lot easier here. You are right about that.
so enjoy it. Enjoy the freedom, the little freedoms you have. You can go for a run.
Yeah.
Here in the city, if you try to even go for a run, the police yell at you and make you go back to your apartment. So imagine I can't imagine if I was in a 1,000 square foot condo in the city, like for 3 months and not allowed outside my door into the hallway. That would be even more crazy.
Yep. There's nowhere in the US that's like that. I wonder how it is in Europe. You know, like I know a lot of videos I'd gone viral of people in their apartments, but I wonder if even going out into the street is against the rules.
Some places.
Mm. Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. Because like even China didn't even have a lockdown that hard. China just had surveillance. You know, like they were just you got a green light, a red light, or a yellow light if you're allowed to leave your place or not. But if you have a green light, you would be allowed to leave your place and go pick up food or do whatever you need to do. But
I think Wuhan had a pretty strict
Yeah, that was
lockdown. But I think right now China's solution is to not test people, so you have 0 cases.
It's just crazy.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a provocative statement in itself, but that's just what some people have said.
I don't know. I think you're correct. I believe that's
yeah, the numbers don't make sense. Someone's not being accurate. That's the gist of it. Either they aren't or other people aren't. There's a lot of room for error in the numbers.
That's true with most things. There's at least one person lying. Someone's always lying.
Mm-hmm.
Just need to figure out who.
Or like you said earlier, Jeremy, maybe it doesn't matter who. Like, let's just figure this out now. Like, let's just solve the problem now, and maybe later we can figure it out.
That's ideal. That's what we hope is happening, but that's really not what's happening.
So, Elise, are all travel plans for you put on hold? Like, you usually do a lot of traveling.
Oh
I
yeah,
think,
definitely. Yeah, it's definitely on hold.
And your business is surviving, or like?
Yeah, it's surviving, but it's evolving. It's struggling, but evolving. So I'm doing a lot of these live, and I did that virtual tea festival, which was quite successful. We had nearly 6,000 people tune in at some point throughout the day, and we're going to actually rebroadcast it again on Thursday. So if you want to check that out, I think it'll be like really late at night for you or early in the morning for you. But so the reason why I was pursuing that was, not so much for marketing or whatever, but I just like kind of wanted to learn these tools, these virtual tools for broadcasting engaging interactive experiences around tea, and ultimate goal would be to offer those types of services to companies that are looking for help in that, and a lot are, I saw like Patron is doing a lot of stuff, virtual stuff, the tequila company, but could definitely use some improvement, like 100%, so companies like that I'd like to potentially work with, to help them create more engaging experiences with their audiences, and keep themselves relevant and, active in the virtual space while this is going on, and let that be kind of a source of support for myself. Yeah. But yeah, the business is definitely like, it's not completely dead. Like I am getting some orders, just like, my clients that are doing online sales, they're ordering slower, but they are ordering still. I'm also anticipating the worst as well, and trying to prepare for that, but definitely not buying any tea. And so those are like the really hard conversations that I'm having right now is with the producers, because, they're hitting me up and like, hey, we can produce, the small growers, want to send us leaf, and, should we buy it and make tea? And I'm like, well, that's totally up to you. And the only information I can provide to you is that the market, is significantly slower. And, a lot of these folks are still sitting on stocks from the last harvest as well. So, it's like, this is a time to make some really hard decisions about, investing in the future and how we should invest in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just trying to get more clever with the online. I've been working with a lot of my clients, trying to help them do more interactive social media and engagement with the community. And I mean, that was also the point of the virtual tea festival too, was just to, get some exposure and also practice too, practice how to use Zoom, practice how to do broadcasting, practice these tools. I look forward to, Jeremy, what you come up with.
Yeah. Hopefully I should start up soon.
Good.
Because it really is like I've been talking to people around, like, so what have you been doing? What have you been doing? And no one's really been sort of after this angle.
Mm-hmm.
Like keeping groups alive online. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, everybody's like, okay, all these clubs and all these groups and all these classes that have met, well, we'll see you in a couple of months. There's really little motivation on their end to actually keep them going. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they knew that it's simple enough to do it online. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it's a matter of sort of getting to them and at least keep that interactivity going.
Mm-hmm. So our friend Joe, who usually comes to these, he commented on Facebook saying that in South Dakota, they're potentially going to start opening up restaurants by next week. So that's good for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, good for his business.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I hope not in Sioux Falls.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Because Falls got hit really hard.
Yeah. One particular, the pork factory. That's a mess.
Yeah. Isn't that how Joe describes Didn't he describe South Dakota like that? We have Sioux Falls and everywhere else.
Yeah. So maybe that's what he meant. Well, guys, this has been a nice conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Great.
I'm gonna tune off now. It was really nice to connect. Charity, especially. Thank you so much for coming in
Yeah.
and joining us.
What a thrill to hear from you, Sherry.
Yeah, I'll try to come on more now that I know this is is it always around the same time,
It's
or
the same
do you
time.
change times?
Yeah, it's the same time. And actually, tomorrow will be my first day that I'm going to take off. I've decided to not do it on weekends now, so I'll be back on Monday. But yeah, I've been doing this, I think, like 42 days straight. For like almost 2 hours every day. So I'm going to start giving myself a little break, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, it's the same time. And then the link that I gave you, it's the same link as well. So,
And what time does it actually start?
so it starts at like 2:30 Pacific. So I'm sorry, I don't know that. Maybe that's like 5:30 your
okay.
time.
That's like 5:30
Mm-hmm.
my time.
Do you usually wake up this
okay.
early, Charity?
On Wednesdays, Thursdays, I do. It's Saturday morning here, so I mean, I've been going to bed at like 8:30 now because I have like nothing to do. So
Yeah.
the sun does wake me up because it is bright. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Got it. Well, that's
Yeah.
nice. Being an early riser and early to sleep is nice. I usually don't get to sleep until past 2 in the morning, so that's a different schedule.
So I don't know. I feel better when I do it, when I go to bed early.
Yeah, no, it's good. I also feel better too, but for some reason I'm always not.
So yeah. So anyways, maybe I'll see you guys on Monday your time.
Yeah, yep, anytime. Yep, we'll be here chatting and connecting, drinking tea. But yeah, guys, have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.